Hey everybody. Um, I'll be honest with you. I don't want to do this, but there have been some things on my heart that I've got to get out. I've got to talk about. Um, I don't know any other way to just begin this than to talk to you. I feel like there's a part of me that should do some sort of formal presentation, but then it's limited and I don't know how this is going to play out. So bear with me. Um, I think for a lot of us have seen a lot of videos and prophecies, quote unquote, from so-called prophets and prophetesses, and some of them really tickle my ear, and some of them annoy me. I think the ones that annoy me is after I've been watching their videos, especially the ones about the 144,000. I hear inconsistencies, and I don't know about you, but I do not serve an Elohim of confusion. I serve an Elohim of sound mind, consistency. But that's not to say that there aren't layers and layers and layers to his word, and that there are deeper meanings to his words. You see on my screen, I've got John chapter 21 open. This is Yahshua just before the ascension. It's the last day that he's here on this earth with the disciples. He appears one last time to them, hangs out with them all day, spends the night with them. Well, here he's and there's more about all that in Acts if you care to understand that a little better. But here he's eating with the disciples, and he looks to Peter, Kepha, and there's three different distinctions here. And I want to take a look at them because we get kind of trapped in the feed my lambs portion, or people think feed my sheep only means taking food out and taking it to the different places where they have food and shelters and such. And that's important. I'm not saying it's not. But let's look at things from a spiritual level, because everything in scripture has at least two meanings, often many more as you grow. And that's what this is about. Feed my lambs. That's your young ones. That's your newbies. That's your new believers. Uh, Full of love and promises and just learning to understand forgiveness and goodness. Even long grown sheep sometimes struggle with forgiveness, because I had a life, and well, we'll just let that go at that. um Testimonies are for individual specific circumstances, not to throw out there for the whole world. I firmly believe in that. So feed my lambs is making sure that the new believers understand the love from the Father and the sacrifice and the obedience of Yahushua. It's teaching the basics of the Ten Commandments. Love Yahuwah with all your heart, mind, body, and soul. Honor the Sabbath day. Keep it Kodesh. Keep it set apart. Somehow, some way. These days, it's hard. It's so hard to set aside a whole day. Find a way. Find a way to set that day aside, time aside, specifically to fellowship with your brethren. Um, don't commit adultery. That's not just fleshly adultery. That's don't cheat on Abba. Don't be worshiping false idols. Ties goes hand in hand with the second commandment. Put no other gods before me. Uh, yeah, all these things tie together. Shepherd my sheep is different. That's guide them along. That's keep them out of trouble. That's the rod and the staff that they use. A little correction here, right? Let's head, come on back over here. You're starting to stray over into that path, and well, that path is over with, and that path was always a lie, and that path over there, no, you don't want to stray down Kabbalah and easy, easy. You don't want to go to that place because they have false teachings. They teach that it's okay to fornicate. So you don't want to go to those places. And that's what the rod and the staff are. Just kind of, come on, keep it in here, keep it in here. Get back on that narrow path. Let's stay in the word. Let's stay with the truth and not man's interpretations of it with tolerance and forbearance, because tolerance and forbearance are both sins. It was because of the forbearance of the people of Sodom and Gomorrah and their forbearance and their tolerance of the sin of the homosexuals and the lasciviousness and so on and so forth, that Sodom was destroyed and Gomorrah was destroyed. It wasn't because of the sin itself. It was because of their forbearance of it. They didn't do anything about it. They didn't talk to anybody. They didn't tell anybody it was wrong. And so these churches that are going off and teaching that the things that are unrighteous in the Father's eyes, you know in your heart that they're wrong. Um, they're bound for destruction simply because they are tolerating unrighteousness and promoting it in the process. So we shepherd our sheep. You watch when you see sheepdog, goodness, we all watch the reels. Come on, don't lie to yourself or to me. You see the sheepdog that gets around the sheep when they're out, or all the sheep when they're out in the field, and these amazing dogs, so smart. And my Daisy girl shepherds the chickens. Um, they bring them all in and they keep them all together so they don't stray off into those other teachings. They don't stray off into those ditches. They don't stray off of those cliff sides. They don't get themselves hung up. Those dogs keep them together. Well, that's what a shepherd is. Sheepdog. Right? You keep them all together. You keep everybody on the same page. And then there's feed my sheep. Not feeding my lambs. It's feeding my sheep. Churches have a bad habit, and we've all been them. I was raised Lutheran. We were all kept sheep. We were all kept at the same level. There was no growth. I've gone to different denominational churches, non-denominational churches. You know what the denomination teaches. You don't learn from the Ruchah KoDeshah. And that's what we need to do, is we need to learn from the Ruchah KoDeshah. We need to say, but something doesn't feel right about the way this is being taught. I know there's more. This doesn't sound right. Wait a minute. The pastor says this, but when I read, I see this. So teach me what's going on here. The shepherds are supposed to feed the sheep, not just feed the lambs. And there's no growth inside of a big church. I've been so baruched, and my conjugating of Hebrew is abysmal, so forgive me. Um, the churches have a bad habit of keeping everybody in the same place. I was blessed 3.5 years ago. My goodness, 3.5 years ago already. We're in our 4th year of studying together, of being placed within a small group of 10. And we have grown together, and we get a little stagnant sometimes. I'm not going to say that we don't, but I think sometimes we get so filled that we have to take time to absorb. And we've been going through something similar to that lately. As Brother Martyn said in his last video, in the last couple of videos, he started using the word proxy, and boy, that just opened up a floodgate of understanding of what the messengers are. of so many different things. So many different things. So here we are. I need to talk about a couple of things because of all these prophets and prophetesses and listening to them talk about the 144,000 and talking about the 144,000 like they're the elect, and then combining the elect and the 144,000 and the chosen with the 144,000, and there's a difference. And all these people saying New Jerusalem is coming, they're missing a whole ginormous portion of teaching. And Brother Martyn did go over some of that in his last video, when he talked about New Jerusalem as a tesseract. If you have not watched it, I highly recommend it. I highly recommend it. Because he gives in the especially the second half of that last one, he starts really diving into some things that we have learned from the book of Ezekiel, which does not end at chapter 39, by the way. It continues on. A lot of it is, I think, I don't want to use the word ignorance of the word, but we have very little understanding of hierarchy anymore. We have very little understanding of servanthood in the hierarchy. We have very little understanding of rulership within the hierarchy, because we come at it either with a military mindset, which has its own advantages and disadvantages, or we come at it with this modern mindset of what slavery is now, has been in the last couple of 100 years, versus what it was originally. And slaves is not synonymous with servants. David had many servants, and those servants were people he rescued out of one a nasty life or another, and then they served him with gratitude, not a forced slavery, much like we serve Yahuwah with gratitude for the salvation that he gave us through his son. I'm not even sure where to begin here. I know I wanted to go over the difference about feeding lambs, shepherding sheep, and feeding sheep. I'm not going to be talking about milk here, and at least I don't think so, because that's not normally my style. I did not set anything up. I don't know exactly where we're going to end up here. I have a tendency to not memorize verse in scripture when Yahuwah's words and teaching settle into me, because I know eventually all this is going to go away anyway. We're not going to have online computers and online chats and online conversations, and we're not going to have a hard copy of the Bible. It's clear in scripture that these things are all going to go away. Having that word engraved in your innards, it all becomes, I kind of laughed because a couple of weeks ago I started calling it this big giant gooey mess, and it all becomes a one of understanding and of righteousness inside of you, and you just know these things, and you might be able to, I know this was in Second Esdras, I know this was in Revelation, I know this was in Genesis, I know this was in the prophets, but I'll confuse something that Ezekiel said with what Isaiah said with what Jeremiah said, and not be able to give you verse in scripture as often as not. I mean, I can grab up a couple. I know it was in Jeremiah 16:16 that we're taught about how the elect will hunt up under every rock and fish under every cranny. And so there's that teaching about the elect. I understand the Galilean wedding ceremony because I studied it. My group and I, our cohorts, we studied it together. Sorry, Texas allergies. It is what it is. I have to get this out of my system. So, okay, let's try. There we go. let's drop off and talk about New Jerusalem a little bit. A lot of people seem to think that nothing can come against Jerusalem here in this realm and in this earth that we have, and that's a lie. Yahuwah himself will destroy Jerusalem. He will destroy what we know as Mount Zion. He will destroy all of it. and that's deal with it. Yeah, I mean, if you read scripture and you come out of what the church tells you, and if you come out of all the silliness, it all gets destroyed. So let's talk about New Jerusalem real quick. People are talking about how New Jerusalem is coming. Well, in a form or fashion, yes, it is. But that's a dimensional thing that really go watch Brother Martyn's video, and he talks about that. I'm not going to belabor that point a whole bunch. What I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you, why would a renewed Jerusalem that's 12 stories tall and half the size, size-wise, Brother Martyn also shared that information about the size of New Jerusalem. Please forgive me. I'm not going to edit this. One reason I don't do more videos is because I don't like editing. I don't like all that silliness. Brother Martyn goes into the size and the dimension, but it's as big as the United States, just one floor. Really? So what does that have to do with the Israel that we know now? Absolutely nothing. There's no way, shape, or form that it has anything to do with what we know as Israel. Not even what we call the land, if you understand the land that was given to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and their descendants, and those who believe in their Elohim Yahuwah. Why would that come down when we still need a renewed earth and a renewed heaven? It doesn't make sense. So let's just put that whole New Jerusalem thing off to the side, folks. I know you hear it a lot. I know you hear it a lot, but that's not what's coming next. After things get a lot worse, after the elect are restored, after the 144,000 are sealed. Okay, yeah. Let me show you before we continue on. And there's so many things about this. Understanding the word proxy really means a lot here. Boy, I could just bounce all over the place. Welcome to my mind when I'm studying. Let's take a look up here in Ezekiel. Y'all know what 38 and 39 are. My goodness, most of the world. 37 is dry bones. 30. So we got 37, the dry bones, and they will be my people. Well, there we go. I shall make them one nation in the land on the mountains of Yashrael. And one sovereign shall be sovereign over them all, and let them no longer be two nations, and let them no longer be divided into two reigns. He's talking about Judah and Yashrael there. I shall cleanse them, while Dawid my servant is sovereign over them. My servant Dawid be their prince forever. This is actually not supposed to be prince. It is supposed to be sovereign. There is a difference between a sovereign and a prince. And once you catch hold of this, you see it everywhere. David knew what was coming. I will make a covenant of peace with them, an everlasting covenant it is with them. And I shall place them and increase them, and shall place my set apart place in their midst forever. My set apart place is not New Jerusalem. My dwelling place will be over them. Here's your New Jerusalem. My dwelling place shall be over them. They shall be in my set apart place, and my set apart place is in their midst forever. So, what is this set apart place? Well, read chapter 40 through 48 yourself. It's after the destruction of Yashrael, and the difference between what Yahuwah gives us here and what we're told about New Jerusalem is amazing. You can't miss the difference once you actually step outside of the church's teachings, step outside of what this person, that person, and the other person has shown you. The name of the city from that day on is Yahuwah is there, or what you'll frequently see me refer to as Yahuwah Shema. Let's go back to 40. And in visions of Elohim, he brought me to the land of Yashrael and set me on a very high mountain. And upon it toward the south was as the structure of a city. And he took me there. Everything that goes on here is the land that was given to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. When people talk about looking for the sanctuary, this is the sanctuary. There are others outside of it, and then you start dealing with things along the lines of portals and dimensions, and I don't want to get into all that because I saw what happened to Brother Martyn when he started talking about those things in his last video, and if you don't understand what he taught, you're not going to get this. This place is all for now. It's not going to stick around. And I want, well, all right, let's take a look at something. One of my favorite books from the Apocrypha, wrong one, is, and really, if you don't have eSword and all this by now, I don't know what to tell you. One of my favorite books is Second Esdras, and Uriel is sent as Yahuwah's proxy throughout the majority of this to talk to Ezra. And in chapter 7, Ezra goes on this whole big crying thing. But what about the lost? And what about the ones who don't love you? And what about the ones that don't accept Yahuwah? And what about, and Ezra looks at him and he's like, you know, the Most High made this world for many, but the world to come is for few. Think about that. There be many created, but few shall be saved. We have a choice, people. We have a choice. We have a choice. Choose you this day who you will serve. As for me, I will serve Yahuwah. But if you want to continue serving false gods, the works of man's hands, if you want to continue and go after Hollywood and the music industry and you think they're all great and glorious, then have at it. I don't get it. I don't. And I'm done trying to understand it. Yahuwah is so righteous and so fair. And he's here for everybody through Yahushua. You don't have to be from the tribes. Look at all the people he's visiting. Yahushua himself is visiting, who were diehard Muslims, and they're meeting Yahshua. And they're saying, wow, was I deceived? Jump on down here into verse 50. For many great miseries shall be done to them that in the latter time shall dwell in the world. A couple of weeks ago, I saw the Hebrew differences between the words earth and world, and they were huge. I don't know if you saw my post. If you did, awesome. If you didn't, well, go find it or go figure it out for yourself. Because they have walked in great pride. Well, it's June in the United States of, divided states of America. So pride, there you go. But understand for yourself and seek out the glory for such as be like you. For unto you is paradise opened, the tree of high is planted, the time to come is prepared, plenteous is made ready, a city is built, the rest is allowed. Perfect goodness and wisdom. The root of evil is sealed up from you. We know from all the other teachings that the Satans get bound up for 1,000 years. So they can't throw all their evil at us and intentionally deceive us. But that doesn't mean that there's not still wickedness outside the walls of the cities and the city and its sanctuaries and communal subsidiaries. Weakness and the moth is hid from you, and corruption is fled into hell to be forgotten. Isn't that wonderful? Corruption is hid up in hell. Finally, the place that was made for him finally holds him for 1,000 years. Sorrows are past, and in the end is showed the treasure of immortality. Therefore, ask no more questions concerning the multitude of them that perish. For when they had taken liberty, they despised the Most High, thought scorn of his laws and his ways, and forsook him. Y'all, we all know them. People dear to us, people we love unconditionally, people we love, but we had to walk away from because they turned their back on Yahuwah, because they went down the path with Thor and Odin and followed what Hollywood told them to follow. Anyway, moreover, they have trodden down his righteous and said in their heart that there is no God. Yes, that knowing they must die. For as the things he aforesaid shall receive you, so thirst and pain are prepared for them. For it was not his will that man should come to nothing, but they which be created have defiled the name of him that made them, and were unthankful unto him which prepared life for them. And therefore is my judgment now at hand. These things I have not showed all men, but unto you and a few like you. I got that. It settled in me. I mean, I got it. It helped me tremendously to understand this and to read this. They defiled the name of him that made them, and were unthankful unto him which prepared life for them. Now is my judgment at hand. Look around, folks. Y'all know. Y'all know. I don't have to go into it. Y'all know. This is an example of proxy. It's not Uriel saying his judgment is at hand. Yahuwah is speaking through him. If you were to look in somewhere, let's see if I can pull it up. Michael, he's not mentioned by name very often. Oh, wrong. Yeah, it should be there. Oh, it's going to be spelt differently. Okay, so let me use King James so I can just use the American spelling and not try and put in all the other stuff. And let's see. When Michael was battling for the body of Moshe, Yahuwah said, Yahuwah rebuke you. And there we go. Maybe. Yeah. All right. Now let me put that in a better translation than the King James. Sodom and Gomorrah and the cities around them in a similar way to these, having given themselves over to whoring and gone after strange flesh, are set forth as an example, undergoing judicial punishment of everlasting fire. In the same way, indeed, these dreamers defile the flesh and reject authority and speak evil of esteemed ones. Well, there you go. I was talking about that earlier. Funny how that works. So here, Michael, the chief messenger, in contending with the devil when he disputed about the body of Moshe, presumed not to bring against him a blasphemous accusation, but said, Yahuwah rebuke you. I need to go back. Let's see. There we go. Let's look at the one in Zechariah. That's actually the one I wanted to see. So we were talking about proxies. This is an example of Michael being Yahuwah's proxy. He's in his stead. So what you have here is, and Yahuwah said to Satan, all right, Yahuwah rebuke you, Satan. Yahuwah, who has chosen Jerusalem, rebuke you. So Yahuwah said, Yahuwah rebuke you. Yahuwah spoke through Michael and said, Yahuwah rebuke you. So it was coming out of what we would perceive as Michael's mouth. And there you go. Proxy. We all hear Judah wrestling Abba. But he didn't wrestle Abba. It was Uriel who came in his stead, and he wrestled with Uriel or Penuel, depending on the translation that you read. And the land didn't get named Yahuwah. The land got named after the messenger that Yahuwah sent. So there's another example of proxy. True prophets and prophetesses are proxies. They don't write stuff down and then read it to you. It's there. They know. It gets written down, but they know. They speak it. They didn't study it. They didn't read it. It was in them. All right, so we've talked about feeding my sheep, shepherding my sheep, feeding my lambs. And we've talked a little bit about New Jerusalem cannot come to earth until after the new earth is made new. So that put that whole mess out of the way. So I guess that means, and we talked a little bit more about proxies. I will try to put Brother Martyn's video, was his Isaiah study. Yeah, I'll try and put that in the description of this. I'm not good at all this stuff. That's part of why I changed my channel name back to Mully, because I don't want glory and gratitude. I'm not a teacher. I'm not a prophet. I'm not a prophetess. I'm just trying to share with you what I've seen so we can kind of cut through some of the crap, get rid of some of the confusion. And I'm not going to tell you how to believe it, what to believe of it, but I'm telling you what I know. And then you go find it for yourself and you go study it for yourself, because these things have been revealed to me and I'm just passing it on. All right. Now that I've said and done all that, let me pull my search. If you're go back real quick, I'm going to pull that search term back down just so you see where I find it from. It's this box right here. This little magnifying glass up here opens up your search bar. And you saw a little bit ago, I had to change which text I was reading to accommodate my words. Let's go back to the King James. I'm going to show you something else real quick. Camp of the Saints. This is part of what helped bring it around to me as far as Gog and Magog, because it's two separate Gogs and Magog fights. There's the one that we're expecting from Ezekiel 38, but then there's another one at the end of the end after they surround the camp of the saints. Well, you think they're going to surround New Jerusalem when it's going to be the entirety of the earth? No, I don't think so. I don't think so. But what they can do is go around. You should see the size. Wait till you read Ezekiel 40 and 41 and 40 through 48, because the walls are like, I don't know, 3 meters thick. They're huge. That's just thick. That's not including how high they are. They're massive. The walls around this city are massive. I love it. I just absolutely love reading that part in Ezekiel. So after the 1,000 years ends and Satan's released from his prison for a short time, just like now, there's people that are listening to the Hollywood freaks and the music industry freaks and the witches and the warlocks that are out there and the cannibals, and they're being led astray by the governments in the world and all these things. And they think that there's actually a difference between the Democrats and the Republicans because, well, it's a good way to keep everybody divided. So he comes back out in about 1,000 years, and that goes back to what Ezra was saying. I'm sorry, what Uriel was saying to Ezra is like, it's not going to be for many. It is a very exclusive membership in eternity, in the Garden of Eden, in paradise. It's an exclusive membership. You don't want every Tom, Dick, and Harry from down the corner coming in. You don't. They're going to mess up eternity? Not in my watch. Not going to have it. I don't want it. I want all the filth, all the sin gone. I want nothing but pure righteousness. Isn't it a beautiful thing to look forward to? Can't even imagine it. How do you imagine a world so beautiful that there's no shadows? My mind can't comprehend that. I can't. I've tried. I can't comprehend it. Anyway, so I've talked to you a little bit about that. I'm steering you into, there's a difference between Yahushua and Dawid. There's a difference between the Prince of Peace, the prince who enters into Yahuwah Shema on feast days and new moon days and Sabbaths to be with his people, and the sovereign who reigns. And there's also a difference of the governors and the rulers and the kings and the princes of the other little lands and the other sanctuaries that are all around the world. Probably about 153 of them. Just throwing out a number since we started out in John chapter 21, just throwing out that number 153. You can, if you don't know it, you'll either learn it, it's not for you, or, well, it doesn't matter to you. Study to show yourself approved. I'm just trying to show you a few things and point out a few things. David knew. It's all throughout the book of Ezekiel that David is going to be the sovereign over the worldly portion, the earthly portion of the 1,000 years. It's all through Ezekiel. It's all through the Psalms. Once you understand that, and once that takes hold of you, you see it everywhere. The apostles knew. The apostles even knew. It's everywhere. Once you stop thinking, but it's 1,000 years of peace with Yahshua, and you get past that and you start understanding what's going on in Ezekiel, that's learning righteousness, that's walking in righteousness, and that there's a way that things are going to get done. You got to grab it yourself. I'm pointing you. You got to grab hold of it yourself. So let's try this. 100, let me shorten it up, 44,000. Because of course, there we go. All right, so I know a lot of people don't think that Revelation is in order. I think it's in block order. I think it's broken down into chunks where he was shown certain things in certain forms and certain fashions, and they're in blocks because the bowls and the trumpets match up after a certain point and up to a certain point, and the seals, and they're kind of block formation. Believe what you will. I'm just telling you what I believe, what I know, what's settled in my Ruchah years ago, and that I can't keep holding on to. So we're going to take a look here in, oh goodness, look at, so I changed my screen a couple of weeks ago, and if you don't like the black and this green highlighting, sorry. I opened up and it was so bright. It was so bright I couldn't even look at it. So I had to switch my theme. Maybe I'll do it for you guys now. Let's try dim light. No, I don't like the green either. All right, there. I will go with that. Oh, that's so bright. All right. So let's talk about the 144,000 for a minute. And they're a very specific group amongst a very specific group. Let's not confuse them with anything else. Different layers, different groups, different peoples, different subsets. Everybody thinks that and I'm not taking away from them in any way, shape, or form. Okay, I'm not saying that the 144,000 don't matter by any means, but they're not the same as the elect or the chosen, and that's just the way it is. And they're not the same as the remnant. There's a difference in harvest. There's a difference in, well, we got 7 harvests. There's 7 churches. In the beginning of Revelation, you've got Philadelphia and Thyatira and all the other churches. And what makes you think that there's only going to be one group of anything? That's not that. It's humanistic. That's I'm saved. Well, okay. So you're saved. Did you do anything today for the Father? Did you spend any time with the Father today? Did you say, Dad, what do you want me to do today? That's what I did that got me here. And I don't want to be doing this, but I'm doing it because it has to get done. But I do need to stop rambling and get other things done. So, 144,000 of Israel sealed. And after this, I saw 4 messengers standing at the 4 corners. Okay, after this, after what? The 7 seals. After this. So he was shown this after he saw that. And he saw the 4 messengers standing at the 4 corners of the earth, holding the 4 winds of the earth, that the wind should not blow on the earth, nor on the sea, nor on any tree. Let me ask you something. You know when a time has happened that's happened? When there's been no wind? No? Me neither. Me neither. And I saw another messenger coming up from the rising of the sun, holding the seal of the living Elohim, and he cried with a loud voice to the 4 messengers to whom it was given to harm the earth and the sea. Do not do that. Don't harm the earth. Don't harm the sea, nor the trees, until we have sealed the servants of Elohim upon their heads. Okay. And then they were all sealed, and it was specifically, and yes, the tribes are scattered. Yes, any one of us could be a member of the 144,000. Not saying we can't be. We're scattered all over the place. But this is a dangerous road to travel down, because that comes from what is it, the Church of Latter-day Saints? No, that's the Mormons. Jehovah's Witness, that only 144,000 are going to be saved. I'm pretty sure that they've already been done. So this is a very specific group, right? And then all of a sudden he looked and he saw a great crowd, which no one was able to count, out of all nations and tribes and peoples and tongues, standing before the throne and before the Lamb, dressed in white robes and palm branches in their hands, saying, deliverance belongs to the Elohim who sits on the throne and to the Lamb. Let me ask you something. Do you think eternity is going to be just that? You think that our Elohim is so small that all he wants is for people to stand around and wave at him all day long? Really? Really? You think he just wants you to sit around and play in a harp all day long? No, I don't think so. He's a God of creation. He's an Elohim who created all things. He created us to create. We create music. We create thoughts. We create things with our hands. We create furniture. We create ovens and stoves, and we're not supposed to just sit around and play a harp all day. Not that we don't have musicians, but there's work to be done every day. Even Adam and Eve worked in the garden. They just didn't toil in the garden. The thorns and the rocks and the vines and all that came up afterwards. Anyhow, before I continue on with that rant, so let's go ahead and take a look at what's 9 have to say. They should not. So we have a little bit more detail. Out of the smoke, locusts came upon the earth, and authority was given to them as the scorpions of the earth possess authority. And it was said to them that they should not harm the grass of the earth or any green matter or any tree, but only those men who do not have the seal of Elohim upon their foreheads. Okay, so these who have the seal of Elohim upon their foreheads, right? The 144,000 have the seal of Elohim upon their foreheads. They can't be hurt by the things that hurt the earth. right? Look at that. You can't hurt the grass. You can't hurt anything until this is done. And it was given to them that they should not kill them, but to torture them for 5 months. Uh-oh. And their torture was like the torture of a scorpion when it stings a man. And in those days, men should seek death and not find it. Well, wait a minute. Let's look at this. So you can't hurt anything. Okay. And it was said to them that they shall not harm the grass of the earth or the green matter or any tree, but only those men who do not have the seal of Elohim upon their foreheads. So those who have the seal, those 144,000, that few small group, can't be hurt by the things that hurt the grass or that hurt the greens or that hurt any trees. And it's that time that everybody else gets tortured. Okay, so that's only 144,000. But wait a minute. We're not given over to wrath, are we? No. The greater tribulation, yes, there's a difference there too. Our lives have been tribulation. The first, we talk about the tribulation time frame as a 7-year period. The first half is greater tribulation. It's judgment. Yahuwah's judgment. And then you have the wrath, which could also be looked at as that greater tribulation is the time that everything is deceptively beautiful and unrighteous. And then, well, even the people who follow Hasatan wish they hadn't for a while. But the seventh trumpet is this great snatching away of the rapture doesn't happen until the seventh seal. I know I'm not making it sound very pleasant, am I? Well, word is what the word is, whether you like it or not. Whether you like it or not. Let's see what we have in 14. Because here we have the Lamb standing on Mount Zion, and with him 144,000 having their Father's name written upon their foreheads. And I heard a voice out of heaven like the voice of many waters, and the voice of a loud thunder, and I heard the sound of harpists playing their harps. I know, I was just talking about that. Didn't say that they didn't happen. There are musicians. That's their job. And they sang a renewed song before the throne. And renewed, that's a big word, renewed. And before the fourth living creatures and the elders, and no one was able to learn that song except for the 144,000 who were redeemed from the earth, and those that were not defiled with women for their maidens. Now, the church is considered a woman. I have my own theories. I'm not going to put that too much on you, but I think the 144,000 are going to be people saved at the very last second. They don't have a chance to be defiled by the teachings of the church and the various churches and the various Pharisees and the various denominations. They get it straight from Yahuwah, and they don't stray because they're following the Lamb wherever he leads them. They were redeemed from among men, being first fruits to Elohim and to the Lamb. And there's no falsehood in their mouths because they're blameless. They repented. They learned right from Yahuwah, much like Paul learned straight from Yahushua. They don't have a chance to get all the denominational religious garbage trouncing around inside their minds and inside their spirits and inside their hearts, and they don't get the confusion. They have been undefiled by the church. Personal opinion, I can't really prove any of that to you. But the 144,000, I can say specifically, are a very select group. Notice that nowhere in any of the discussions about the 144,000, it's mentioned 3 specific times. It's alluded to in a couple of other places. These prophets and these prophetesses talk about how The 144,000 are going to have all these powers. I don't see that. Do you? I've certainly been defiled. I've been redeemed. I've repented. I repent daily. I ask for correction from the rod daily. I ask to be led by the hook and the staff daily to keep me on the straight and narrow. But I can't say that I am not defiled, because I have those church teachings in me, and I struggle with letting go of them and trimming my wick of the past erroneous teachings from the church every day. I hope you do too. I seek fresh oil every day. I hope you do too. I hope I'm helping you trim your wicks a little bit here and putting you in a mind to go seek fresh oil. Don't take my word for it. You go seek your own oil. I can't give it to you. I can point you in the direction. I can pull you in with the rest of the flock, but whether you stay and how you handle it from there, that's up to you. If you want to stick with the old teachings of the church, that's also up to you. There's still a place for you in eternity. It'll all be drossed off and burnt off when we're in Yahuwah Shema. That's the purpose of the 1,000 years. Get rid of the old teachings. Learn straight from Yahuwah, and without any of the lies and deceptions of the enemy to distract us. With none of the distractions, we'll be able to learn and get the full truth of all things. Where was I going? Okay, so let's take a look at the elect. And oh dear, that's still in the other format. Let's try turning it off because the two are combining and that's not cool. Open it again. There we go. And let's try that again. The elect. Okay. Let's try it from the chosen. And there we go. Let's go ahead and he shall send his messengers and assemble his chosen ones from the four winds, from the farthest parts of the earth and the farthest part of heaven. He shall send his messengers with a great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his chosen ones from the four winds, from one end of the heavens to the other. He's gathering them. Never said anything about gathering them with the 144,000. It didn't happen. So let's take a look at, and we'll just go here and we'll take a look at chosen. The Greek. Da-da-dum. The elect. Select, by implication, favorite, chosen, elect. Let's see what else we can get off of that. The chosen ones, the elect. You know, they were chosen from the foundations of the world. Make a choice, because we chose. We were chosen, but we had to make a choice. Let's not let ourselves get all wrapped up in silliness. Many are called, but few are chosen. Let's switch over to the Aramaic. Switch it back over down here. Chosen ones are the chosen ones, the elect ones, approved, chosen. Oh, there's a difference. Let's look at, not in that version. Let's go back to my favorite, Jeremiah 16:16, because one of my sisters found that, and boy, that just tickled me. Therefore, look, days are coming, declares Yahuwah, and it will no longer be said, as Yahuwah lives, who led up the Israelites from the land of Egypt, but only as Yahuwah lives, who led up the Israelites from the land of the north and from all the lands where he had driven them. For I will bring them back to their ground that I gave to their ancestors. And when you go into Genesis and you read about the land that Yahuwah gave to Abraham, and the borders of it, you'll find that they match exactly with what's in the book of Ezekiel when he talks about the borders of Yahuwah Shema. And so there are those things. For look, I am sending for many fishermen, declares Yahuwah, and they will fish them out. And afterward I will send for many hunters, and they will hunt them from every mountain and from every hill and from the clefts of the cliffs. Dude, I'm sending for many fishermen. Who are the fishermen? And what many? That's not 144,000. They're going to go hunt them out. They're going to go everywhere. For my eyes are on all their ways. They are not hidden from before me, and their iniquity is not concealed from before my eyes. Somebody's got to do these things. Who are the fishermen? I refer you back to John chapter 21. I will refer you back to that. It either settles on you or it doesn't. The hunters, you got to hunt them out. Hunt out the evil. Help pull the good ones out. You fish. They fished with nets. They didn't fish with hooks. They fished typically with nets. So the fish weren't hurt. Hunters, well, hunters hurt. For all my eyes are on all their ways, and they are not hidden from before me. Their iniquity is not concealed from before my eyes. Let's look at the word. What is that phrase? I think it's in the King James. It's put that way. Let me think. Taste death. There we go. Matthew, truly I say to you, there are some standing here who shall not taste death at all until they see the Son of Adam coming in his reign. Huh. Well, so Yahushua comes back at the sound of the seventh shofar with the 144,000. Truly I say that there are some standing will not taste death at all until they see the reign of Elohim having come in power. My goodness. So what was he? Who was he talking to? The thousands. He talks about his death and his resurrection. You know, chapters and verses are great for helping find studying and resources and such, but they're only a few hundred years old, and man added them in. Yahshua didn't talk about them. Matter of fact, a worm got put in my ear a few weeks ago that when Yahushua stood up in the temple, and because he was considered a rabbi, even though they murdered him, because they didn't like what he was teaching, he read from Isaiah 61. Let's bounce over there real quick so I don't misquote it. Isaiah, I love you know, it just makes it so easy, and you get to see right along with me. When Yahushua stood up, all he read was up to here. He didn't read beyond what we call the second half of verse 2 of chapter 61. They expected him to, because they thought that that's how the Messiah was going to come, which is what they're looking for now. But if we eliminate the fact that this is halfway through verse 2, that's only existed for a few hundred years and that was put in there like by man, what is it? Yahshua wept. Well, do you know why he wept? Yeah. If you don't know that he wept and you don't read that in context, that it was because of their lack of faith and before he raised Lazarus, and that they didn't believe and understand that sleep was only temporary, it was because of that that he wept. But you might know the exact verse and chapter that says Yahshua wept. But do you know it in context? A lot of people I've heard, I always thought it was in while he was up on the cross and hanging on the stake, but that wasn't it. It was because of their lack of belief. Anyway, Yahushua in the temple read, "The Spirit of Yahuwah is upon me, because Yahuwah has anointed me. He has sent me to bring the good news to the oppressed, to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim release to the captives and liberation to those who are bound, to proclaim the year of Yahuwah's favor." And he stopped. And he stopped because the rest of this and the next chapter and the chapter after that are for us. "And they shall build the ancient ruins. They shall erect the former deserted places. They shall restore the devastated cities, the deserted places of many generations. And strangers shall stand and feed your flocks, and foreigners shall be your farmers and your vine dressers." This is the Zion in the coming Zion, not the Zion that is here now. And you got to look, you got to study, you got to grab it, you got to reach for that oil. You don't be unwise and try and steal somebody else's oil. I can guide you into a direction, but I can't. I'm not going to just fill your. I'm not going to do it. You got to go seek it. I'll give you the ideas. I'll open your eyes. You got to go seek it. And I'm probably upsetting a whole bunch of people right now, because the idea of David ruling during the 1,000 years and not Yahshua is anathema. But when you read 40 and through 48 of Ezekiel, you'll understand why Yahushua can't be here all the time. And when you understand that there's more to New Jerusalem, and you understand why. And it all becomes one great big gooey mess inside you that just makes sense. And when you hear those self-proclaimed prophets and prophetesses talking about the 144,000 having powers, it doesn't jive, and it'll bother you. Some are restored, some are transformed, some are just translocated. But you got to understand the whole you got to get the parts to get the whole, but you have to have an idea of the whole to understand the parts. And I've been so blessed that it's all just a part of me, and I can break it down but I'm trying to get a whole bunch out there to you at one time, because it all bothers me when I hear it spoken of wrong. It bothers me. It bothers me. It bothers me. For the sake of Zion, I will not be silent. And for the sake of Jerusalem, I will not maintain a quiet attitude until her righteousness goes out like a bright light and her salvation burns like a torch. When it happens, you'll know. I don't want you to be surprised. I don't want you to be disappointed. I want you to understand. But it's not for everybody. It's not in everybody. But read it. Read 61, read 62, read 63. Get a hold of it, because you're not going to get it from one specific verse. I can't tell you in this verse it says this and this means. You have to take it all together. You got to get it all together. You got to let it turn into one great big gooey mess inside of you. Yahushua tasted death for everyone. There's a difference. Seek it out. I gotta go. I got other things I gotta do. I've spent a lot of time here. I don't know how long this video is. I don't know how long I've been sitting here chewing on your ear. I'm telling you, find these things. Find these things. Let it get into you. Because once you grab hold of it, once you start seeking, it'll all wash over you like a flood. Best way we've come is it's a download, and then the download has to install, and it takes time, and we're precious close to out of time. Precious close, where we're not going to be able to grab hold of a Bible. You got to get this stuff into your belly. You got to engrave these things into your hearts. It's got to just become so much one with you that nothing else stands in the way. Nothing else matters. It's just part of you. You don't need daily devotionals. You don't need pre-colored lessons. You don't need somebody else to tell you. You just have a knowing. And somebody else says something, then that's a confirmation. But seek the Ruchah. Seek Yahuwah. Seek them. And all these things will be given unto you. And it doesn't come easy, but you can't look at it from our little bitty three-dimensional world. You got to expand your mind. You have a birthright. You have a birthright. We are heirs to the throne. You don't even know what that means because you don't understand kingship, because you don't understand that the king is the servant of the people, because we've been lied to for so long living in this demoralized nation where our rulers have their boots on our necks and they're supposed to be our servants and taking care of us. It's not like that. It's not like that. Servanthood does not mean cowing. Being meek before the Father is learning from the Father. Being humble before the Father is taking what he has done, given to you and told you and taught you, and taking it out before man. But it's not for everybody. There's watchmen. Profess Yahuwah, have no rest. Because Jerusalem is all of Yashrael. It's all of those who seek him daily. It's all of us. If you're watching this, you're one of us. You wouldn't be wasting your time sitting there listening to me for I don't know how long I've been talking at you. If you have questions, please let me know. I'm sure you will. Best bet is to PM me. Yeah, I'm not hard to find on Facebook. Send me a message. I will try. If you're going to start an argument with me, I'm not going to bother. I'm not going to argue Yahuwah's word. I refuse. I will point out what has been pointed out to me. I won't argue. I will help answer if I can. Some things are just so much a part of a knowing that answering is this isn't for sheep. This isn't for the little ones. This isn't for the lambs. And if you want Christian doctrine, go someplace else. If you want Jewish Torah, Kabbalah teachings, go someplace else. I got nothing for you. I'm not going to argue with you. I'm not. No time for arguing. Seek, you will find. Knock, it will be open to you. Knock on the dimensional walls and open, expand. Because there's more to everything than just one thing. All right. Oh, my goodness. I love y'all. I got things to do. Hit me up with your questions. I will do my level best when I have time to try and expound upon something, but please, please, please don't argue. Pray about it. Seek it first. I will try to remember to put Brother Martyn's, especially his last video, in the description. He talks about how New Jerusalem is a tesseract, and he is right. Our little merry band of cohorts. We have no doubt. So, shalom. May Yahuwah Baruch your studies. May the Ruchah guide you and keep you in his word, that you find the deeper meanings to things, that you open the layers, that you not be closed-minded to the doctrines of man that we've been taught, that you trim your wick, and that you find fresh oil.